nonfarmstrategy.com.
Hi, this is Chris again, looking at the upcoming Friday, August 1st trading session. And as I look through the economic calendar, you can see right off the bat we have Chinese manufacturing PMI. 51.4 suggests, of course, that it is an expanding manufacturing base. That's what the world wants to see, because remember that China is considered to be the maker of things for the world. So as long as the Chinese economy is expanding, the thinking, of course, is that the global economy seems to be doing better, or at least reasonable. We do have PPI coming out of Australia, probably a low-risk event, though, just simply because of the recent RBA activities, and therefore it's kind of taken a back seat. HSBC China manufacturing PMI comes out. That is considered to be a little bit of a for lack of a better word, true number, because there are always concerns about Chinese numbers, whether they are true or not. HSBC being a private corporation, that's why it gets a little bit more weight at times. But that being said, both of those numbers will have to be followed. As we continue through the day, you can see that we have a plethora of low impact numbers, and quite frankly, once we get through China, there's probably not too much to worry about until we get all the way into America. Yes, I see the Germany manufacturing PMI, and typically that would be interesting. But with non-farm payroll numbers coming out, that is without a doubt going to be the absolute market-moving event. You can see that we have the USD change and non-farm payroll number for July. It's anticipated to be 231,000 added. Previously it was 288. That is a number that is going to be very, very important. There are several markets out there that are kind of hanging by a thread. If we get a good number, that could be enough to really move the stock markets and some of the other riskier investments. The various stock markets around the world really got hit on Thursday, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. You have the unemployment rate as well. That's the top line number. People tend to ignore that anymore, just simply because you have to look at workforce participation and whether or not that number is influenced by it. A little later, we have plenty of minor employment numbers. It's more or less the entire report, the totality of it. But a little later, we do have Canadian manufacturing PMI. That's probably localized to the Canadian dollar, maybe the Toronto Stock Exchange. And then we have USD IMS, so we have the United States IMS manufacturing numbers, and it's listed as a high, but quite frankly, after the non-farm payroll numbers, it's hard to imagine that this is going to really move the markets. 56 is expected. If it's worse than anticipated, then fine. Perhaps that could move the market. We have consumer confidence as well out of the University of Michigan. It's expected to be 81.5. Again, after the non-farm payroll numbers, really not much to look at. So without a doubt, that will be the thing to pay attention to during the day. Looking at the charts, you can see that we definitely had an interesting day in the stock indices. You have the S&P 500, which just basically fell off a cliff, closing just a tick or two away from being 2% down for the session. We have without a doubt smashed this channel, and now the question is do we follow this potential trend line? The non-farm payroll number is probably going to be what determines that at this point in time. I believe that the market is vulnerable enough that this area could give way, and really it only needs a bit of a nudge. You can see you can draw a horizontal line here at around 1930, 1925. It kind of matches up with this uptrend line, so we are without a doubt at an area where the market's going to need to see good news. If we break down below here, 1900 is probably going to be hit, and then we really get bearish. Again, though, non-farm payroll numbers will move this market. It's almost like we're hanging on a precipice and we need to see a better than anticipated number. At that point in time, the S&P should climb drastically during the day. But we will have to wait and see. A break below this trend line in the next 20 points or so will almost certainly be down. Looking at the dollar yen, you can see we tried to rally. We failed at the 103 level. Not a surprise. We're waiting on non-farm payroll. If it's good, we'll go above 103. If not, we'll pull back to about 102.30, 102.25 or so, looking for support. Really, this is going to be a non-farm payroll event. This pair is very sensitive to it. Right now, we're at the top of the consolidation range, so a pullback's not too surprising. But again, above 103, we probably tackle 104 and then 105 eventually. Looking at the British pound US dollar pair, you can see that we are bouncing off of a trend line at about 168.60 or so. 169 was an area where we thought we'd see some support. We didn't. We did break down below it, but we did bounce off the trend line. So the question then becomes, do we have bullish momentum in the pound later in the day? Probably a non-farm payroll announcement reaction as well. It's probably going to be more or less a move on the dollar, not the pound. So if we get a little bit of a bounce here, a little bit of a risk-on environment, above the 169 level, we feel we go to 170 and then possibly 172. A break, a sustained break below 168.5, of course, is very negative, probably sending us down to about 167. Finally, we have the euro dollar. You can see that we tried to fall again during the session here on Thursday, but quite frankly, just couldn't do it. And with that, it appears that the market is going to bounce a little bit, possibly during the day. But again, this could be a simple reprieve because of the non-farm payroll numbers. Maybe the market just didn't want to be bothered with it. A rally here, I think, finds a lot of trouble at 135 as we sell off and continue down to the aforementioned 133 level. I mean, quite frankly, we've had a pretty parabolic fall, so a bounce isn't surprising. We break the bottom of these two candles, we'll probably see 133 in short order. And with that, that is a look at the upcoming August 1st trading session.